Let's now across to Derek Thompson, editor-in-chief of the France 24 Observers, our website which fact-checks and stays in touch with our citizen journalists. Many thanks for being with us here on France 24. Amateur footage coming out. We were talking with Rob Parsons earlier about the fog of war. You've found some that has been verified, which matters, right in the suburbs of Kiev.
That's right. It's actually inside Kiev. We're talking about the Obolonsky district. And we came across a video this morning that was shot apparently by a civilian just from his or her car. And if we can see the video and we can listen to it as well, you'll see it's just it's a relatively empty street. You can see a tracked vehicle a little bit in the distance. We don't know who that tracked vehicle belongs to, whether it could be Russian or Ukrainian, but we can hear shooting. We hear sounds of small arms fire, quite heavy sounds of small arms fire. So we know that there was combat going on there. Now, if we can take a look at a map, I can show you where this region is. It's on the northwest side of the capital, Kiev, and it's actually within the city limits. It's called Obolonsky, and you'll see it on the map. It'll appear just on the right-hand side of the map. And it's interesting because it is within city limits. The Ukrainian authorities reported that Russian troops were fighting in that neighborhood in the morning. On the Russian side, it's interesting. They were talking about airborne troops who arrived yesterday. So if you look at the map,
reporting on the fight for that airfield on Thursday.
Exactly. So if you look at the map, you see Obolonsky district kind of in the middle there, and then over further west, you see Antonov International Airport. That is where that helicopter attack took place. It was a flight of dozens of Russian attack helicopters and also troop-carrying helicopters, the kind of helicopters that normally carry troops into battle. They engaged in a firefight over Antonov International Airport, and we know that they put down at least some soldiers because we've seen images that show Russian soldiers with white armbands actually on the ground at the airport. So the question is, where were those soldiers today? The Russians said that the soldiers, they landed at the airport, hooked up with other Russian troops, and were then fighting in this Obolonsky district in the northwest. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the fighting was going on, and they put a message out. It was an appeal to residents in the Obolonsky neighborhood. And they said, please, citizens in the Obolonsky neighborhood, we ask you to keep us informed about the movement of military hardware. Peaceful residents, be careful. Do not leave your homes. But they also said, make Molotov cocktails and neutralize the occupier. So there does seem to be fighting that could be happening there. And then if we can see one more video later in...
Make Molotov cocktails. In other words, dig in for the long haul and perhaps draw in the Russian forces to urban warfare.
They were the ones advising civilians to make Molotov cocktails to fight the Russian troops. Later in the day, we can see that the Ukrainian authorities were handing out weapons apparently to civilians. Again, we don't have all the details. We know that this was in the same neighborhood.
And these images are verified, the ones you just
These are verified images. We know that these images were shot around the middle of the day in the Obolonsky district in northwestern Kiev. I saw a shotgun and I saw an assault weapon, an assault rifle being handed out to people who are in civilian clothing. So it suggests that the Ukrainian military or the Ukrainian defense authorities are handing out guns to civilians, expecting that there might be fighting there.
What about when it comes to seeing actual Russian troops on Ukrainian soil?
Well, we've been looking for that all day. We've got an idea of what to look out for because we've been following videos of the Russian troops who've been preparing on the edges of Ukraine. And we have seen some pictures of Russian troops inside Ukrainian territory. And in the south, and we have a map to show this, much further south, there are, so much further south from the capital, just north of Crimea. Crimea has been held by Russia since 2014. And about 60 kilometers north of there, inside Ukrainian territory, we've seen columns of Russian armor actually coming in. Those videos, they had... there was a Ukrainian civilian who was narrating those videos, and he said that the soldiers there, he spoke to the soldiers there, he saw soldiers on the ground. This is what we're talking about here. This was in Kakhovka. You see that indicated on the map.
Near the Dnieper River?
It's further south than there, but they were crossing a bridge, and in the video, you see soldiers actually on the ground. They are Russian soldiers. The man making the video, who appears to be Ukrainian, he goes up to the soldiers and he says he asked them, where are you guys from? They said, we're from Russia. He said, can I film you? And he said, yeah. And they said, yes, go ahead. So these are apparently Russian soldiers who are saying openly, yes, you can film us. We're here. We're in Ukraine. And they actually arrived in a column that had armored vehicles in it. It had APCs, and we have pictures of that as well. Here you can see some armored vehicles. If you look on the side of them there, you'll see a Z written. There you go. There's one there, and then there's one on this truck. You see they're putting a Z on the side of their
what's that
vehicles.
about?
We've seen that in a lot of Russian vehicles all around the zone, and it appears to be an effort to differentiate their vehicles from Ukrainian vehicles, because the two armies, of course, have the same kind of military materiel that they've had since Soviet days, the similar equipment, so they're trying to distinguish themselves, apparently. There's one other thing that we've seen Russian soldiers doing, and there's one shot of them here. This is interesting. This is pictures that we think were in the Kiev area. Now look at this soldier right here. You can see white armbands. This is something we saw in the south, and we've also seen in the airport that we were showing before. Russian soldiers wearing white armbands on both arms. That appears to be a sign of a Russian soldier within Ukraine.
Right, so because they get their equipment from the same source, both sides.
Exactly. It all comes from Soviet equipment. The weapons look very similar.
One final question for you, Derek Thompson. People watching these images on social media, they're very strong at times, and there's this impulse to retweet or to like. What advice would you give to people?
It's going to sound arrogant. Wait till we verify them. When we say a verified video, what we do is we take the video and we use the available information to us to establish that that kind of event was happening in that particular place at that particular time. We also look at details like the geography, the outlines of the buildings. We cross-reference the buildings and the shape of the streets with Google Maps, with other public sources. We make sure we can know 100% that a certain video was shot in a certain place, and then we have other techniques to determine what time it was shot. So when we verify videos, it actually requires a lot of work. It's very important work because we must be documenting what's happening in a conflict that is as confusing and as confused as this.
All right, many thanks. Derek Thompson from the Observer's website at France 24. Thanks for being with us.